work of this very project is to know if Biafran Nation, a project that has taken years and many lives, are now qualified as a nation. This we will know through the evaluation of international lawyer who knows much, who works with the United Nations on the statehood of any nation. If today Biafra is qualified, welcomes you to another edition of our program. There is no doubt everybody is embracing to know what is going to happen on the 2nd of December 2024 in Finland. Well, there is doubt on everything anyone does in life until the manifestation of that project. When it becomes reality, everybody praises it. When it fails, then it will be condemned and the management team of such project blamed. But that does not stop one from undertaking projects that will benefit generations to come. There is no doubt Africans blame anyone that does anything that does not give positive result immediately. However, it must be known that the Biafran project is a huge project that requires leadership and management for it to be actualized. According to Arnold Glasgow, he stated, one of the true tests of leadership is the ability to recognize a problem before it becomes an emergency, unquote. On the other hand, Henry Ford stated, I quote, be ready to reverse any system, scrap any method, abandon any theory if the success of the job requires it, unquote. Therefore, the Biafran project has been set. The goal must be challenging. At the same time, it should be realistic and tenable, not impossible to reach. That is the motivation of those who have engaged passionately in this very project. It is challenging enough to stretch them, but that does not mean it will break them. In this very program, we will evaluate their work and ask one passionate question: does the Biafran project really satisfy elements of statehood? To do this, we will give chance to an international lawyer to evaluate elements of statehood. We will all listen to him. As you are listening, please do not fail to subscribe to this channel if you have not done so. Like, share, and leave your comment. Let us listen to what the international lawyer has to say. It is your turn and duty to evaluate and produce a report and conclusion for yourself. Thank you.
International law was created by states for them, and it was primarily designed to apply between them. And states are said to be active subjects of international law. But what is a state as a legal subject under international law? Well, true, we all know intuitively what a state is. But have you ever met with a state? An entity is a state within the meaning of international law. It is usually considered that three elements characterize a state: a territory, a population, and an effective government. Those three elements are notably recalled by the Montevideo Convention on the Rights and Duties of States, a convention concluded during the 7th International Conference of American States in 1933. The convention is set to codify the criteria for statehood and to codify also the declarative theory of statehood, something I'll come back to. The Montevideo Convention adds a fourth element, namely, I quote, the capacity to enter into relations with the other states. However, let us consider that this fourth element is somehow included in the notion of effective government. It is indeed the external aspect of an effective government to be able to entertain international relations. A quick word on each of those elements. First, territory. There is no state without a territory. That is an area of land attached to the crust of this planet. This is because us, human beings, we live on the ground, not in the sea or in the air. And it must be a natural territory, not an artificial platform above the waves. However, there is no need to have a territory with clear and undisputed borders all around. What matters is the control over a certain territory. The size of the territory does not matter. There are huge states like Russia and micro-states like Monaco. If size of the territory does not matter, it nevertheless remains that, as some have said, international law is obsessed with territory. And it is true that many disputes have existed and still exist today between states on issues of title to territory and about border delimitations. Realize that the concept of state sovereignty is intrinsically linked to territory, so much that territorial sovereignty is key to statehood. In 1928, in an arbitration between the Netherlands and the United States of America about the sovereignty over the island of Palmas, which is also called Miangas and which is situated in the Pacific Ocean south of the Philippines and north of Indonesia. In that award, Max Huber, acting as sole arbitrator in the case, famously wrote that, I quote, "Sovereignty in relation to a portion of the surface of the globe is the legal condition necessary for the inclusion of such portion in the territory of any particular state. Sovereignty in relation to territory is called territorial sovereignty. Sovereignty in the relations between states signifies independence. Independence in regard to a portion of the globe is the right to exercise therein, to the exclusion of any other state, the functions of a state." End of quote. Second, a population. There is no state without a population, without human beings living on the territory of the state. Again, the size of the population does not matter, but it must not be an empty space, nor a space with wild animals only. And the population should live on the territory on a permanent basis. It can, of course, move around according to the seasons, but it must be there. It does not matter if the population has the nationality of the state or nationalities of several other states. That is another matter, and it is possible, even if it has never occurred, it is possible that a state decides not to grant its nationality to anyone. Third, an effective and independent government. By this, what is required is that the population living on the territory be socially organized, governed and represented by authorities that can effectively enforce the international obligations of the state on the territory and the population. And those authorities must be independent, that is, they must not obey orders from outside and must act in an autonomous way. Traditionally, states are free under international law to choose whatever form and nature of government they prefer. A state may choose to be a republic or a monarchy, to be a federal state or a very centralized state. It can also choose to be a military dictatorship or a liberal democracy under traditional international law. And on that last point, international law is indeed traditionally indifferent to the nature of the political regime of the state. Moreover, international law prohibits outside interference in what are called the sacrosanct domestic affairs of a state. This being said, more and more states agree in treaties to have a democratic form of government and to respect some fundamental political freedoms. Those treaties are mostly concluded at the regional rather at the universal level. However, if such treaties have been concluded and are binding on the state concerned, it is not free anymore under international law to have an undemocratic government, while the way to govern its people is also curtailed by rules of international law. The process by which those three elements meet at a certain moment in time and that a state comes to existence, that process is essentially a factual process. Historically, states have established themselves as states because they were able to do so as a matter of fact. And this may explain why territory, population, effective and independent government are sometimes said to be constitutive elements of states. However, I submit that this is a misconception if by constitutive one considers that the state stops to exist as a state if one of the three elements comes to be missing. In fact, this is not the case. The state survives and does not disappear if, notably, it lacks an effective government. For instance, Germany was left without any central government after the fall of the Third Reich, but it did not disappear as a state. And closer to us, Somalia did not stop being a state despite lacking an effective government for many years. Therefore, instead of considering those three elements as constitutive of states, it is a better view to see them as criteria for the identification of states. By this, I mean that they help to identify that what we have in front of us is indeed a state, rather than something else like a tribe or an international organization. Just like the shape of leaves helps us to identify that the tree in front of us is an oak and not a chestnut. The act by which existing states officially take notice of the existence of a new state and admit it as one of their peers is called state recognition. It is a very old institution of international law, and it is a decision of fundamental importance. And this is because if becoming a state is essentially a factual process, being a state on your own without being admitted in the family of nations and considered as a state by the other states.
Thank you very much. You have heard the international lawyer explain the elements of statehood. Now, Biafra as a nation has existed before until it came to standstill, just like Germany did, Somalia, and other countries of the world. That does not mean that that nation has ceased to exist or disappear. This notion has kept Biafra being regenerated by activists who want Biafra to be reinstated or restored. And that is the essence of the agitation and the restoration. For the proponents who stated that Biafra is dead, Biafra is never dead. As long as there are historical proofs, there was once a nation called Biafra, and the children and grandchildren of those who fought the war remains in mind, whether it is being taught in the school or not. The history and the activities have been published nationwide and at international level. Therefore, the ununited nation of Nigeria has continued to marginalize, subjugate, annihilate, and exterminating the remaining children of those they killed by Nigerian military during the Nigerian civil war against the Biafrans, and they continue killing them in every political crisis and destroying their businesses and properties all over the nation called Nigeria. Therefore, it is impossible to say that this actualization will die off. It will never die off. The international community that is looking and be writing in the newspapers and the radios about what is happening in Nigeria, various presidents of the world or prime ministers or the foreign ministers in Nigeria that are witnessing the killings, the annihilations and extermination, including marginalization of the Igbos and the Biafra at large, who fail to ensure that there is actualization of Biafra, are considered as part of the problems. Now, everyone has witnessed the elements of statehood. It is your turn to conclude if Biafra has met the required elements of statehood. It is a task for everyone, whether you are part of Biafran nation or not. It is your duty to evaluate if the struggle for Biafra at international level meets the criteria of statehood in terms of territory, population, effective government, and diplomacy. Thank you for watching. Until we come to you once again, do not first to subscribe, share, like, and leave your comment. Thank you. Remain blessed and take care of your health. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Bye.